Hello, everybody. Welcome to another Cool Kids live review. I am your host, the Austinator. You may have noticed something different about me. Yes, I shaved my beard. Also, I got a haircut, so there you go. Today, we are taking a look at Markiplier's, big YouTuber's directorial debut in The Iron Lung. I am, of course, joined by the Geek Informant, Cinematic Sterling, and the Right Dude. We're basically the Fantastic Four of the stream. I don't know who would be the thing because both Geek Informant and Cinematic Sterling are bald. Uh, so
I'm the
I'm guess.
thing.
All right, so Geek Informant can be the thing.
Well, I'm
I
not
guess
Who's
cinematic.
Jewish, so apologies.
I guess cinematic Sterling can be Human Torch because I mean, again, he's kind of
does it? What does that make me, Sue Storm?
Yes.
uh.
Even though my
Anyway,
even though my tits are non-existent.
anyway, uh, we are just we're just gonna get right into it. We're gonna get into it by first going over our expectations. So guess I'll start with my expectations. So when it comes to growing up with YouTube, I of course grew up with the one, the only, yes, you guessed it, based off the stream, Smosh. Well, yeah, that was in middle school. I don't know what the fuck I was thinking. But anyway, over time when it comes to watching YouTubers, like eventually, like thanks to being in middle school, I watched like Good Mythical Morning and other things like that. But one of the there's of course the big three: Jacksepticeye, PewDiePie, and of course Markiplier. And out of all three of them, I was more of a Markiplier guy. I mean, I primarily got into him because of his FNAF series because that was very big at the time. But over time, I grew to like a lot more of his content, like when he's like playing like the more sillier type games, like uh, Henry Stickmin, or when he's playing Uno with Bob and Wade, and he even like some of the stuff like his Markiplier Make series where he's like fucking around with Ethan and Tyler and all that fun stuff. And I even like some of his other Let's Plays like Doom. But what really drew me into Markiplier as a whole is his creativity. I mean, his certain projects like a date with Markiplier, a heist with Markiplier, in space with Markiplier, like all his choose your own adventure stuff. I mean, I think was really well done and really got to showcase a lot of like what he's able to do in terms of his creativity. And like I liked his other things like Who Killed Markiplier, Damien, and so many other things that really get to show off his more artistic, creative style. So naturally, when it comes to Iron Lung, when I heard he was doing a movie, I was like, "Holy shit, Markiplier's doing a movie! That's obviously that makes sense because I mean, seen his stuff. I haven't listened to Edge of Sleep. I mean, I haven't seen the show, but I know that's based off a podcast. But I was like, oh, okay, this is interesting. So when I heard he was doing this, I was like, oh, this is gonna be cool. This would be great. Now, with all that out of the way, what did I think of the movie? Well, I'm gonna put a kibosh on that real quick because I'm gonna let everybody else say their piece. So I'll start with the Geek Informant. Just give me your overall expectations.
So, I might get yelled at. I might be called a heathen for this, but I have actually never watched a single Markiplier video. Nothing against the man. I admire him greatly. I respect him as a person. He seems like one of the few actually decent human beings in this world. So, good for him. And despite getting to that level of fame, he still seems to be a good person, taking all the right lessons from, people like Keanu Reeves and Weird Al Yankovic. So good on him for that. But he started to get popular kind of when I was like, because I went through like many phases of what I watched on YouTube, and that was kind of like out of the gaming phase when he was starting to get popular. And I was just kind of too old for that demographic, so I never really watched his stuff. I like knew the name. I was aware of his existence. I know a lot of people liked him. But I was just kind of indifferent to him as a creator. Um but I admire what he's done, not just with this film, but with just his work with charity and work with, to his loyal fan base and whatnot. So I respect him for that. It just, I never really watched any of his content, so I didn't really have much to go off of. Um, before I, really got into this movie outside of like what like little clips I've seen and what other things I've seen of his work. So, that was just kind of it. But for the film itself, I watched the trailer when it first dropped, I think, and I was like, okay, this seemed like, I just, having no real knowledge of Markiplier outside of, again, what I've seen and heard, which was very little. I'm like, this looks like a cool movie. Like, this just, I was kind of sort of aware of Iron Lung. I knew that he made it like a couple years ago, and that's why he wasn't in Five Nights at Freddy's, because he was busy working on Iron Lung. So I was aware of it in that case, and then I, watched trailer. I'm like, this looks like a good horror movie. I'm into it. We can do a review of it or not. And people were into it, so we're doing a review of it now. But just as a movie, I thought it looked interesting, so I was like, I'd watch it, and we watched it. So here we are.
Um, so I wasn't like a diehard Markiplier fan, but I did really like his stuff. Like out of the big three, like Let's Players, with him, PewDiePie, and Jacksepticeye, Markiplier was the one I watched the most. I don't know. I don't know. I couldn't really get into PewDiePie. I always found him to be really annoying. But it wasn't his Five Nights at Freddy's stuff I watched. It was his Let's Plays of like the Slenderman games and of SCP Containment Breach. So I really liked those videos. I think I still like them. And I watched some of the Five Nights at Freddy's videos, but that wasn't like my introduction to him. But I thought he was really funny. And when it comes to my expectations for this, even though I've never ever heard of Iron Lung, I was definitely curious and actually kind of excited for him that he was so passionate about this game. He said, "Hey, I'm going to fund and do this movie myself," and and like, oh shit, okay, let's fucking go. You had my curiosity, now you got my attention, and that first trailer actually looked pretty good. So even though, yeah, I wouldn't say I was excited, like hyped up for this movie, I was definitely interested.
All right. So for my introduction to Markiplier, honestly, I'm kind of with Austin. I actually found out Markiplier through his Five Nights at Freddy's videos. Now, I will say that I was in college. I was at my 4-year college years when I was watching him. And I didn't. I do remember getting in. Like I said, I got into his through his Five Nights at Freddy's videos because I remember one of my friend and I, we were talking about like scary horror games or something. I remember mentioning like some Slender Man, Resident Evil, things like that. And then he brought up Five Nights at Freddy's. I had no idea what that was, I did some research. I went on YouTube. I went to figure what it is. One of the first videos that ever popped up was Markiplier's video. So honestly, I was introduced to both Five Nights at Freddy's and Markiplier all at the same time. But I mean, I also watched a lot of his other things, like later on, I remember what are those impossible quiz games? I remember watching him play the Slenderman games. The Would You Rather, will you press the button, where he said he would blow up Detroit just for cake. That was honestly pretty funny.
Herbie coded, not gonna lie.
But I mean, I watched it. It was mainly out of the three, PewDiePie, Jacksepticeye, and Markiplier. I remember watching. I think I watched Markiplier the most, Jacksepticeye the second most. I mean, PewDiePie. I do remember watching a little bit of PewDiePie, but he was the one I watched the least out of the three. Nothing against the guy. It's just I was just more into Markiplier and Jacksepticeye. So when it comes to those, so when it comes to Iron Lung, I did hear about this when Markiplier did admit that he was not going to be in the Five Nights at Freddy's movie. He said during a stream he had to turn it down because he was making his own movie at the same time. So I was really curious about it. I've never played Iron Lung, so I don't know shit about it. Although, not gonna lie, after I saw the movie, I pretty much at least listened to his Let's Play. I didn't watch because I was driving myself to work and I do not want to die. So I was just listening to a lot of his the Iron Lung Let's Play like on the way to work. So and it seemed like it was something he was really passionate about. So I was really curious about it. The trailer looked interesting, and I was really curious what he could do, you know, as a full-time director. And who knows, maybe he would be and who knows if, because I kept thinking like maybe he'll pretty much pull off a better movie than Chris Duckman, but that's another story. So
All right. So good stuff. Very good stuff. Very good things across the board here. I mean, I'm glad that I think the consensus is that Markiplier, we've seen him the most, other than John, because John doesn't like fun apparently. Just JK, buddy. JK. Anyway, we're just gonna get into our overall thoughts because, you know, I mean that's why we're all here, right? We're not here to just glaze Markiplier, you know. I mean, I understand his, you know, he's got really nice hair, but like, come on, we have to be very fair. Um, so overall thoughts. I am going to preface this by saying that this movie isn't going to be for everybody. For a lot of reasons that I'll explain throughout. Also, don't take my words for it. Don't take my review as like, he said he liked this, you know, this movie must be good. No. Take all of our reviews with a grain of salt, because again, it's not going to be for everybody. It's a very, like, you have to have an acquired taste for this. I would say go into it with an open mind and go into it like at least with your own expectations, I guess, if that makes any sense. But that being said, I quite enjoyed this movie. For a game that I really had no real knowledge of, I didn't really watch gameplay of this beforehand, which is kind of probably my fault. And from what, you know, and from what I saw, at least from the video description of like Mark's channel, it looked like a very, very short game. Like, it's not a very lengthy like game that you would try to do a very like full feature length film out of. But the fact that Mark was able to do this and do it fairly well for his first time making a big, huge film that was released in theaters is quite impressive. And also, by the way, cough, cough, Chris Stuckman. This is how, you know, this is how you make a movie. This is what a YouTuber movie should be. I'm not saying it's perfect, but you can tell a lot of effort was put into it. Not saying that Chris Stuckman didn't put any effort into it, but like, come on, just come on, just not. I'm not, again, maybe just saying. Um, so, you know, and also I'm going to take a page out of the Geek Informant's book to close it out. Is that Mark went the distance, and you know, the fact that he was able to put his movie out there, and the fact that it did really, really well. Massive kudos to him. Those are my overall thoughts. I quite enjoyed it, and I'm going to hand it over to the Geek Informant so he can give his overall thoughts.
So for me, I overall liked the movie. I thought it had many positives, that we're gonna get into later specifically. But I thought with what this managed to accomplish is very awe-inspiring, especially as someone who wants to do this for a living, hopefully one day, if, you know, if I'm lucky. Um, But for me, I thought from a technical aspect, from a story aspect, from an acting aspect, I think all of it was quite good. It does have some flaws here and there that we will also eventually get into, but overall, I was kind of, especially with the bad reviews that I had been hearing from some people, I was a little worried. Um so I was like, I kind of had decent expectations, but not like, oh my god, like super high expectations. Like it was maybe my one of my most anticipated, but then like the bad reviews came and so I was like, oh, maybe it's not as good. But then watching it, I was like, so when does it get bad? And then I finished it, and I'm like, that wasn't bad at all. So, I quite enjoyed with what Mark managed to accomplish here, and I'm really happy that he got to achieve what he always wanted to achieve, and I hope that he has a bright future ahead of him in regards to making films, and not just his YouTube channel.
I guess I'll go next since we don't know where Devin went. Um, so overall, I did pretty much enjoy this movie. I did have fun with it. It's not perfect. I'll get into my flaws. I'll get into my problems later. But this is a movie I respect. That I enjoy. I appreciate what Markiplier has done with this. You know what Mark has done with in this. This is clearly something that he put his heart and soul into. He cares about this. He cares about this franchise, or I don't know if it's considered a franchise or if it's just a one-off game. But he clearly cares about this game. He cares about the source material. You know, I do, and it's something that I can pretty much applaud him for. I mean, not everyone is going to be able to. Not every YouTuber is going to hit big, but I do have. I always say this. I usually have more respect from the director who's usually a big fan of the source material rather than a greedy ass studio that doesn't give a shit about the fans, that doesn't give a shit about the source material, and pretty much just wants to put whatever out there just so they can make money. So I've said that before many times, and I still stand by that. So whether I understand some of the qualms. I'll get to them later, but I do really appreciate this movie. I do appreciate Markiplier. This was something that he clearly loved. So, and it really shows. I'm trying to think. There was something else I was going to mention, but it's slipped my mind for some reason. It's actually kind of funny to see that a once biomedical student has now become has got like over 30 million subscribers on YouTube and has made his very first movie. Honestly, that's impressive. You know what? That's impressive. A guy who dropped out of biomedical school for his YouTube career, and look where he is now. So that's it. So I'll let this guy go next.
So my overall thoughts on this movie is this is a movie I respect more than I like. And I'll get into why I don't like it later, but like what Rob was saying, I'm happy that Markiplier was the one to have made this movie. He is a big fan of this game. He did it all himself, and it shows the passion is on full display. And it's better for a fan to make his own adaptation of their own adaptation of a movie. For example, the Sonic movies. Because the Sonic movies, they're made by people who love the games. That's much better than a studio banking off of an IP. Like the 2021 Mortal Kombat, or I don't know, like Assassin's Creed or Doom or Resident Evil. But like this is like a success story. Like I do applaud because this guy, there was no marketing for this movie, like no big like studio funding. He did it all himself. And when I saw this in theaters, like my entire theater was full because everybody loves Markiplier so much, and we're all happy for him. But with that being said, even though yes, the passion is on full display, I don't love this movie, and I'll get into why.
Awesome.
And if I am repeating myself a lot, just keep in mind I worked outside all day, so my brain's a little fried or frozen.
One more thing I want to mention about is that this is a movie where you can honestly thank a lot of his fans for having such a wide release, because you know that this was originally going to be a limited release, but then his
like
fans
50
pushed
theaters was the height. But Markiplier's like, hey, if you want to watch this in a theater, call your local theater, and then it got, I think, it to like over 4,000 theaters all across the world. So yeah, it just goes to show, real bro. I saw somebody post something in regards to that, was like, in the like, would you rather kind of thing, would you rather have a million loyal friends or $1 million? And Markiplier's like, both. So, like, like, imagine just being like, hey guys, go see my movie, and then it becomes a fucking multi-million-dollar hit. So, you know, independent content creators won over propaganda. So I think that's a very happy win in our book.
I was just gonna say it did way better than the Milani movie.
That's what I was
Yeah, that's the joke.
saying without saying it, because I didn't really want this to get political. But
Well, we won't talk about
anyway.
I mean, it made, so far, before we get into our positives, it had a $3 million budget, and it's made over $30.8 million. So, so needless to say, it was a massive success. Massive applause. So, we are going to get into our positives. For a movie that's basically taking place in a submarine for the whole entire movie, I think the movie looks very, very good. For a very cheaply made movie, you could definitely tell they used their budget to the max. Mark wasn't lying that if there was a lot of blood in this movie, because there was quite a lot of blood, especially since it's supposed to take place in almost a sea of blood in a apparatus. So I mean, go figure. And in saying that, because it's taking place in in this one central location for the most part, I think a lot of this movie had to hinge on Mark's performance. And I think his performance was very good. Do I think it's like the best acted thing? No. But again, I've seen a lot worse acting from actual actors. So I mean, hey, take it for what it were. And I think Mark did pretty damn good for, what he was doing. I thought the atmosphere was very well done. I'll talk a little bit about my mixed and my negatives, but here I think, like, in terms of like having that atmosphere, and like, because they're also in like this really, like, in the submarine, right? So it's very, like, claustrophobic, and like kind of having that aspect I thought was really well done. In the score, where it was like, it just added onto it. And and I appreciate a horror movie where there's like no like real jump scares, which I mean, I always appreciate that. The story overall, again, I'm not very familiar with the Iron Lung games, so I'm not exactly sure, like, but I could tell that because Mark's so passionate about it, I'm pretty sure it's for the most part very accurate from And I did watch a little bit of the gameplay last night, and for the most part, it's pretty accurate to what he was doing. I think for what it's worth, the story was very interesting. Kind of having like this almost like because of what happened to humanity, and like kind of like basically going through this whole thing to almost like just to go one step further and like learning about everything, I thought was very cool and interesting. And talking about like the visuals and like the effects, like that whole like real trippy sequence where like he's like tied up in like the river blood, and he sees like the massive like eye thing. I was like, oh, that looked really, really gnarly. And just like the overall like visual effects too look great. So you could definitely tell like they went really above and beyond. And like the other actors I think did fairly well. Like Troy Baker did his, I mean, for the little we saw like we heard of him, I think he did really well. I think Caroline Kaplan, who played Ava, was did a very good job. And I did like learning a lot about like Mark's character's backstory, because again, I mean, you kind of need to know a little bit more about him, and it kind of added to his performance. Um, I mean, like I said, from like a very mechanical standpoint, this was a very, very well made film. And kind of like, I mean, I don't want to keep repeating myself, so I'm gonna so I can let everybody else talk. But you could definitely tell like he was very passionate about this, and what came out of like the finished product, it really showed. So I mean, again, when it comes to like the very technical aspects, like the way it was made, I think the story is interesting. Like all the groundwork's there, and I think like it's a very well executed, well made film. Is it perfect? No, but I'll talk about that in the later sections. But I am going to let the geek informant talk about his positives.
So, I will preface this by saying if I had a nickel for every eldritch slash cosmic horror film that came out recently by a first time filmmaker that was beautifully shot yet went underappreciated by the public because of insert reason here, I'd have two nickels, which isn't a lot, but it's weird that it happened twice. Had to get that out of the way, so here we are. For me,
John, I'm John. I'm just saying, dude. For Christmas or for your birthday, I'm just gonna get you like a giant like pillow, a nickel pillow.
okay. But anyway, sorry, I just love that quote. Thank you, Dan Povenmire, for that little bit of cultural zeitgeist. We very much appreciate it on this show. But anyway, so for my positives, first thing I wanted to get out of the way was the acting. I usually do acting first. I thought Markiplier, Mark, Mark Fishbach, whatever you want to fucking call him. I guess keep calling him Markiplier because then people will actually know what we're talking about. His acting was surprisingly well done for the most part. I thought there are some points where it's a little awkward, but I'm gonna get into that later. Gonna go into more specifics. But for the most part, as someone who doesn't really act outside of just being himself on camera and just like commenting on games or being silly, he actually did a good job of like presenting who this guy is without knowing a ton about him. You sympathize with him a lot over the course of the movie. You just want to see him get out okay. You want to see him persevere through this weird, fucked up situation, even though you kind of start to know more and more things about the things of his past. You still, like, for some reason, just like really like latch on to him, and I think they did that very well. Um, and I think Markiplier did a fascinating job with that. And I really like how he portrayed like that sort of aspect, like this guy that's stuck in this one location. You're stuck with him for the majority of the film, and he really like sold with what they were trying to do here, and that's mainly the whole idea of um claustrophobia and being stuck in one location. Like you really, you're in this fucking metal tube. You have nothing but monsters and blood around you, and you're with this one guy, and this one guy is really selling the idea of this like claustrophobic environment, like this very um like just the cabin fever of it all, like the whole idea of like going crazy in this like small space. He really nailed that very well. The whole like idea of like really fucking going crazy, but in like a realistic sense of like it's not like over the top or anything. Like he really, it wasn't too much, it wasn't too little. It felt right, like right where I think a normal person, even someone who's in a post-apocalypse and this and that and the other thing, he really sold on what I feel like someone would actually go through when they are stuck in this situation. I think that was done very well, very fascinating performance. Um, and I and with that, I thought, as I said, the claustrophobia was great. Being stuck in one location and the insanity that you feel over the course of the movie was done it was executed very well. The cinematography was very good. I think, again, like being stuck in one location, it could get boring. Like you could be like, but the way, and I feel like first time filmmakers do this a lot. But here it actually worked where they're trying to be flashy with the camera, where they're like, oh, they're doing like all these crazy angles. Like Sam Raimi did this a lot with the original Evil Dead, which is very full circle moment, and I'll get into that much later. But he like eventually to the point where Sam Raimi got famous for this, using a lot of Dutch angles. He did a lot of Dutch angles in the second half of the Evil Dead, and that's one of the things he was famous for, is just like a lot of like weird, kooky, strange angles. That's what it's kind of done here, but it makes it like more interesting. You know, it's a lot of first time filmmakers, they try to do all these fancy things with the camera, because the thing is, directors, they can control camera stuff. They can't really control people, but considering Markiplier is all by himself, he can control everything. The way he controls the camera to try to make it as interesting as you can, with these like interesting editing choices, interesting cinematography, the way it's showcasing parts of the ship, and it never shows the outside either, which I really liked, because I thought there was going to at least be one shot of like the Iron Lung in the ocean of blood and blah blah blah, but they never do that, and I really liked that. They do show the actual ocean of blood at the very beginning, but not while the ship is like inside of it until like the very end, but that's a very like small point. But like like as I say, like never in the middle of the movie when he's like actually going on this expedition. Um, and I really appreciated that. But the thing is, the cinematography, I just noticed that a lot of like really interesting angles that he did with that, and I really like paid attention to that. And I've noticed that like other first time filmmakers do that as well. But here, like he does it to like try to interest you, to make sure you're like in this situation with him, and it actually really worked. As I mentioned, some of the editing choices, like certain transitions, like there was this one that I remember. I don't know why I remember this specific one, where he's at the control deck. I don't know what it's called, like the mechanism. And he's like at there, and then it like transitions up, and then you see him at the camera, like pressing the button. I thought that was an interesting transition. I really like noted that. I'm like, oh, that's interesting how he did, even though we know that he had to walk over there. The fact that it like transitioned like that was really good. And stuff like that like interested me, like again, like kind of playing. I think this is kind of like a perfect little thing for a first time filmmaker, because you can play around with so much stuff, and I think he really made that work to his advantage, of like again himself in one location, making sure like it like some of the things are interesting, because you can, it's like, oh, such a simple plot, boom, I can make things as interesting as I can from a technical side of things. So I really liked that as well. I really liked. I thought it was a well-written script. It was simple, but yet it was executed very well. In the far-off future, all the planets and stars have disappeared. In the quiet rapture, and humanity's in dwindling numbers, where there's too many to feed, but too little to actually do anything about it. So they're like, okay, they send this convict, like, hey, find something. We need help. And it's executed very well, and you're like overall intrigued, as the things I've mentioned before. You're overall intrigued with what's going on. Like you again, sympathizing with the main lead, sympathizing with the idea of what humanity is going through, and the idea of like what is out there in this ocean of blood that can help humanity actually reach a point of like being okay. So it intrigues you very well, and I think it was overall well written. It doesn't really. It's one of those movies that refuses to give you answers. It doesn't spoon feed you. It doesn't treat you like a baby. It like actually like gives some kind of respect to its audience by not overly explaining every possible thing. So fans of Stranger Things are definitely going to hate this movie, because spoon feeding things, they love doing that. But all joking aside, I really admired the film. I was like figuring out, but I'm the reason I'm into it and I'm paying attention because I'm trying to figure things out. I feel like I'm that Markiplier is just bringing you in to this story because he's not giving it to you on a silver platter. He's like inviting you into this journey by being like, "Hey, figure it out." And I feel like whether you like or hate this movie, that shows a filmmaker that trusts his audience and has respect for his audience. And I really admired that. I really admired that, whether it was executed in terms of the answers that were given and not given. I respect that a lot about Markiplier and what he does in the future. That's the thing that makes me like, okay, like ignoring what he's done before, what the future he has as a filmmaker. I'm really, really intrigued with this. Let's see where you go from here. I thought it was a great slow burn. As I said, the premise was great and the ideas are fascinating. Like slow burn movies. You either do it really, really fucking well, like something like The Changeling. It's probably one of my favorite horror movies of all time. That is a well executed slow burn. Or something I know I'm alone on this, but I don't care. Something like The Shining that bored me to tears. I did not care what anybody thinks. I'm sorry that movie bored me, and I did not think that was well executed slow burn. But this, for me, was a well executed slow burn. I thought the intriguing aspects of every single idea of a technical scale, acting scale, and a premise scale, it made me intrigued with what was going on, and I wanted to see where it was going. The acting from everyone else was also very good. You kind of forget about them a little bit. Yeah, you have Ava and like a couple other people there, but you kind of forget about. I don't even know where Jacksepticeye was in this movie because he's credited, and I don't know. Maybe somebody else can answer that for me. But he was in the movie. He was a voice in the movie, and I don't even know where David Szymanski was in this movie. But yeah, I thought everyone else did a good job. Like the speaker, Ava, a couple other people, they all did a good job. It's mainly Markiplier, so you kind of forget about them a little bit. But yeah, I thought. But I think those are all my positives. Again, this is one of those movies. The more I think about it, the more I like it. The more it gets inside your head, I really, really appreciate it and appreciate what Mark did as a filmmaker in this case. And I really greatly admired that. And I think it pretty much gets almost every aspect for me as a horror movie. Like you got some gore in there, the practical effects are very good. This did break the record for most fake blood used on a movie set. It was previously held by the Evil Dead remake, but with 70,000 gallons, but this beat it out with 80,000 gallons. So props to Markiplier for breaking a record, many records. So yeah, I do have a couple flaws here and there, but we'll get into that later. But for the most part, I thought Markiplier definitely nailed a lot, and I mean a lot of aspects of this movie because I really, I greatly not only respected it but liked it majorly. I was very much like, wow, this is a damn good movie. Anyway, I'm done filibustering. I apologize.
So when it comes to my positives, I would definitely like to mention Markiplier's acting. He's actually pretty good in this. Considering he doesn't really have any experience with acting in a movie outside of just his YouTuber persona. I'd say he was pretty solid in this. I would say again my apologies. I had a long shift at work, so I'm a little out of it right now. His acting was really good, even though like we're in mainly one setting. In the Iron Lung, I thought it was shot very well. I thought like the future aesthetic and like what we get to see from this world looked really cool. I thought the score was pretty effective and creepy. And I didn't see Jacksepticeye, but I did recognize Troy Baker. And I fucking love Troy Baker, so fuck yeah. And go back to the acting. Markiplier's like acting, like sure, like people can sure. Even though I do like how like this movie doesn't like spoon feed you information, and I like how Markiplier does a good job making you care about his character, even if like what he did, like you still gotta admit, no matter like what someone did, like setting someone to do this is pretty fucked. But those are some of my positives. I don't really have any mixed.
Okay. So, in terms of my positives, I mean, I'm pretty much just preaching to the choir at this point because it's like everyone else said, you know, Markiplier, his performance does a great job. For his first time making an actual movie, you know, he does a really good job with the performance he's given, you know. A lot of the other actors, they do a really good job too, even though their parts are minor. By the way, to answer anyone's question, Sean McLaughlin, aka Jacksepticeye, he was in the movie, but it was like a few second cameo, you know, where we're like on the surface, and it's like a non-speaking role, so it's like you just see Jacksepticeye's face, you know. It's when Markiplier was like arguing with with Ava, you know, like on the through the glass kind of thing. You just see a quick glimpse of a Jacksepticeye. I just wanted to point that out because not gonna lie, I had to look that up. So, but anyway, I do like how you pretty much more explore about this world. You know, you explore more about Simon, Markiplier's character. You know. Explore more of his character, what's going on, you know, how he got into this situation. I really like that. And I like how it's pretty much just like John said, it gives you clues into what is actually happening. It doesn't spoon feed you. It doesn't treat you like you're an idiot who pretty much has to have everything told, you know, because I mean, the thing is that movies are visual medias. You know about the term show, don't tell. And Markiplier, he did show everything through visuals and pretty much kept giving you clues so you could be able to figure things out on your own. Like I said, I like how they explore his backstory. I do love how they use practical effects in this movie, you know, with all the fake blood. And fun fact, by the way, Markiplier, he did have to go to the hospital during the filming of this movie because he had blood in his because he had fake blood in his eyes. So just wanted to point that out. But I do love how it was like all practical things like that, because like any studio would just be lazy enough to just use like half-ass CGI, you know, for this kind of thing. But Markiplier, he went the distance, and I always give kudos to anyone who pretty much uses like practical effects, you know, gets like actually has like fake blood and things like that, rather than just taking the lazy CGI route out on this. So I do love how all that the different angles. I do love the atmosphere that everything has. It's got sort of that, like John said, it's that claustrophobic horror kind of thing. It kind of reminds me so much of Alien in a way, you know, where you're pretty much trapped in this like very claustrophobic space. You're pretty much trapped in this one area, but there is something out there that could possibly kill you, and I do like that. That's what made the original Alien so great. You were trapped in this environment with this one person, things like that. So and I mean, I'm just trying to think here, and I do like how, yeah, they didn't use shots of what the actual Iron Lung looked like until like the very end of the movie, where you see explode. But I can understand that that's probably it wasn't Mark, but I feel like with a budget of like, what was it, 1 million? I forgot, maybe it's 3 million. I forgot how
3 million. It was 3 million.
Yeah, 3 million with the budget. I mean, obviously there was only so much they could do, and I think what they did with the budget of 3 million, it really pulled off. I think I remember seeing like some of the behind the scenes where it's like the rocking of like the Iron Lung submarine was like pretty much, it's like, what do you call those? It's almost like kind of like a ride of some kind. It's like a crane and just moves this little fake submarine and just moves it around a little bit, just to get that feel kind of thing. But yeah, I think that's, like I said, I'm pretty much preaching to the choir at this point. So, but it's like, those are pretty much my positives, the ones I can think of at least. If I have any more, I'll let you know.
Very good, very good. Now it is time for our mixed. I'll just be very quick with mine because I mean, I more so that negatives are more negatives, but in terms of mixed, I don't really have a whole lot. I will say maybe the only thing I would say is that, like, as much as I like Markiplier's performance overall, I do think some of his like some of the things that maybe I think some of his like made delivery did come off a little like at times, especially when he was like doing like all the exaggerated yelling, because it kind of reminded me of like very more comedic almost when it probably wasn't meant to be conveyed as that. But other than that, I don't have a whole lot of major mixed things. It's mainly just negative stuff. So I'll let John, Geek Informant, go next.
Yeah. So for me, the few mixed things I had was, I think, towards the end of the movie, like specifically the second act into the third act, you can definitely feel the running time. Like, this is an over 2 hour long movie, and you kind of start to feel it towards the end. It's not bad. I'm like, I wasn't like bored or anything, but I'm kind of like feeling, I'm like, okay, when do we get to the end here? Because I'm kind of feeling it, and it felt like it was kind of going on, and I'm like, okay, I can feel that we're close. Let's just kind of start to wrap this up. And then like 5-10 minutes later, it wrapped up. So it wasn't too bad, but it was still noticeable enough to me, like, not great. It had a bit of a slow beginning. Just to kind of get there, maybe the first 5-ish minutes were like, could have been a little bit quicker, but outside of that, I think it was fine. There were certain weird editing choices. Well, for the most part, it was very good. I think that some of the editing choices, again, towards in the second half, I think the first half was better than the second half. The second half, where it just felt like it was going on a little bit too long. Again, not feeling the running time or anything like that, like towards the end, but it's just like weird editing choices that could have been better. I feel like you could have lobbed off like maybe 15 minutes of this movie, and it would have been an overall tighter experience, because the pacing was the thing that was like, I feel like Mark struggled with. He did edit this movie himself, and I feel like he should have gotten a more like veteran film editor, because it's very different editing a YouTube video versus editing a major feature film. So I think he should have gotten someone to like help him out with editing the movie, because usually when horror movies are over 2 hours, that's like 9 times out of 10, it's usually that's not a good sign. And I feel like you could have lobbed off like 15, maybe even 20 minutes to just like tighten it up a little bit. Again, I didn't hate it. I didn't think it was overwhelmingly slow. I wasn't bored by it, but the pacing was still noticeable enough that I'm like, okay, make it a little bit tighter. And because of that, I think it was the pacing relying on the editing was not as good as it could have been, because I think the pacing relying on the writing was fine, but I think it could have been a little bit tighter. And then, as Austin said, I think Markiplier's acting at points was not great. Like, he does the kind of I'll try to say this as like nicely as possible, but like usually when first time actors, you notice this a lot in like teenagers who are first time actors. They do the what I like to call the constipated level of acting, where they clench their teeth really tight and then they go like this to make themselves seem more angry when they don't want to yell. And then it's so Markiplier kind of had that like constipated acting where he's like trying to act overwhelmingly serious in a certain situation, and he's doing the clenched teeth thing, and he's like, oh, I'm angry, and he's like, but it's not coming off as like, oh, this guy is angry in this situation. This guy seems like he hasn't had enough fiber in his diet and really needs to take a shit. Like, that's like the kind of vibe I was getting from that. But like honestly, but for the that was like 5% of the performance, maybe 10% if I'm being a little mean. But like for the most part, his performance was fantastic. Like straight up. Like literally, like Leonardo DiCaprio was nominated for one battle after another. Yet I think Markiplier gave a better performance here than that Oscar nominated performance. So, you know, that just goes to show how great of a job he did here, outside of those few like scenes of him like acting overly constipated. But that's usually something that first time actors do a bunch of, where it's like they do the constipated grit teeth thing. And I think as whether he's acting in future projects or not, just be more he's not fucking watching this, but like just be more aware of that, because usually actors make that mistake. And I feel like if whether he is going to continue acting or he's just going to be behind the camera, we'll see. But I do hope that if he does act in his projects for future films, that he doesn't do like the over exaggerated constipated acting like he did a couple times here. But outside of that, I don't have any major negatives. So moving on.
I'll pretty much I know mainly the issues that I have, like I'll probably be able to save those for my negatives. So, but I think the only major mixed thing was just like what you guys said, like maybe like a little bit of Markiplier's. Even though he did a really good job, there have been points where he does seem like he's trying a little too hard, to feel some kind of emotion, and I mean, I get that this is like his first time and all, so I can't really harp on it too much. So, but I would say like maybe with not try just like super hard, like you have to, like you've been holding your bowels in for days, and you really have to take a shit kind of thing. You have to like, I feel like you could probably be able to just try a little bit of like, try not to be so try and wait too hard to have some kind of emotion. I mean, I think that's like the only mixed thing I could think of, because the only other the issues I'll get to when I get to my negatives. So yeah.
All right. I think, Devin, you said you didn't have any mixed. All right. All right. So we're going to get into our negatives. So I'm not going to go too long on this, because really they're both kind of the same, to me at least. The biggest issues with the movie, admittedly, were the pacing and just it's one of those movies where it's a very slow burn film, and because of that, I felt like the pacing at points was a little off. I think because, again, I'm not really blaming the movie for that, because like, again, because the game is primarily based in the apparatus, there's really not a whole lot of stuff you can do. I think that, however, because it's a very slow burn type of movie, and I appreciate what he was trying to do at points during the movie, like maybe it was because it was a long work day or some whatnot, but I did feel myself dozing off at points because it is a very long movie, and you're trying to stretch out a game that's not really long into a 2-hour feature length film. It kind of, at points you start to feel its runtime, and I'm kind of like with John. Towards the end, you definitely start to feel the runtime of, all right, like let's wrap it up. And just as a whole, I feel like that's not. It's one of those things where maybe that was the intention of the movie, to be very slow, but I feel like it is something that it's not like a major negative to the point where I hate the movie, but it is something that I noticed during the actual film itself, which admittedly, kind of like Devin, it did kind of hurt my score. Not as much as his, spoiler alert, but just enough to where I was like, yeah, it's one of those things where I'm not gonna give him too much shit for it, because it's not like a Chris Stuckman where he's basically like, where Mark's a film critic and like he's like, oh, I'm making a movie, and it's like, oh, well, now I'm gonna have to judge you harshly because you're talking all the shit. It's Mark's first film, so there's room for improvement. So I'm not gonna be too hard on the guy. So here's to hoping that if he does another movie, that he'll take that criticism, that it doesn't necessarily need to be like 2 hours, because I do kind of agree with that sentiment that it probably didn't need to be 2 hours, but that's just me. But overall, those are really my only negatives. Is I just think the pacing and at points and it's just very very slow. But again, that's not like a big issue. That's just something I noticed. So, John, I'm going to let you take over here. Any negatives?
I don't have any negatives. All of my problems were mixed, so move it on over to the next person.
All right, Devin.
So there was a one contributing factor to me not liking this movie. And like I was saying earlier, this is a movie I respect more than I like. And the reason I don't like this movie is because it's so fucking boring. Like, god damn. This movie was a fucking slog to sit through. To a point where I don't think this movie should have been I don't think this movie should have been 2 hours. Do a short film, maybe make it an hour and a half, but at a certain point, this started to feel like 3 hours. I get this is supposed to be a claustrophobic movie. I mean, we're in one setting. I get it. And this is supposed to be a slower burn, but this isn't a good slow burn. Halloween is a good slow burn. John mentioned it earlier. The Changeling is a good slow burn. This is just at a certain point in this movie, like, I am not making this up, I fell asleep. There was no reason to make this 2 hours, and the pacing really is what ruined this movie for me. I wish this could have been trimmed down. And I'm not trying to shame Markiplier at all. I'm not. Like, this is his first movie. And I'm hoping, like, any criticisms like any of us do have will help him improve for whatever his next project will be. But even if you're trying to be accurate to the game, that doesn't mean you have to put every little detail in there. Like, I heard that the game is slow too. But what works in a game sometimes doesn't work with a movie. Same deal with a book. Like, sometimes what works in a book doesn't work in a movie. And John, that is a good point. Very very good point. So those are the kinds of film that's the kind of filmmaker I respect. But yeah, that was the big thing for me, and that was what really ruined Iron Lung for me. It was way too long, and it was so goddamn boring. I'm done now.
Okay. So yeah, the negatives is pretty much mainly the pacing, and I do agree it didn't necessarily need to be 2 hours. It could have been like an hour and a half, and it probably would have been fine. However, I mean, it doesn't. I don't think it damages. I don't think it heavily damages the movie like this guy says. I don't know if I'm pointing the right way. I keep forgetting that that the image is mirrored. Anyway, I don't think it heavily damages it. I think the movie still works very well on its own, despite the issues. But I feel like you could have made the pacing a little bit better. Could have. I do agree. It didn't have to be 2 hours. It could have been. You could have trimmed the fat. In other words, you could have just trimmed the fat a little bit, maybe. And if there's one thing I will give Markiplier, something that I will not give Chris Tuckman, is the fact that Markiplier is open to listen to criticism. He's willing to listen to what the thing is, I've said this before and I'll say it again. Film criticism is not a bad thing. It's not about how, oh yeah, your movie sucks, you should quit, you never need to work in this business ever again. It's not that. It's so that you can learn for next time. So, and that's one thing I will give props to Markiplier, is that I want him to try again. I want him to try again to work on this, and then listen to the criticism. Find out what didn't work, what you can improve on. It's not like where Chris Stuckman, where he wants to go run in a corner and hide and just be like, "My movie is perfect." La 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 la. He doesn't want to. No, it's no. Mark is like, okay, I hear your concerns, and I will do better next time. And that's what, honestly, hate this movie all you want, but you have to give applause to Markiplier for at least understanding where people are coming from, being able to say like, okay, this worked here, but it doesn't work here, so let's try to be able to fix it. So I will always give those kinds of filmmakers respect, the ones that will at least take criticism to heart and try to improve them for whatever project they have next in the future. So yeah, I do agree. The pacing was an issue. It didn't have to be 2 hours. It didn't kill the movie for me. It didn't kill me. I still enjoy this movie despite those issues. But I can understand how some people like Devin would be very bored by it. So it's not going to be a movie for everybody, though. And even Markiplier, I think it even acknowledges that. So, though, that's pretty much what I got to say.
All right, very good, very good. Well, now it is time for the final verdict. Um, I'll of course go first. Like I said before, it's not a movie that's going to be for everybody. It's a very slow burn movie. I know a lot of people. I know Devin, his big problem with the pacing, which I think is a lot of people's issues. But I personally enjoyed it. It's one of those movies where, I can't objectively give it a bad grade because it is such a well-made film that it's really hard because like even though the pacing and the editing was rough at points, I still found it to be very enjoyable. And because Mark is when you listen to criticism, I hope for like if he does another movie, which I will go see, I hope he takes those criticisms and he actually addresses those and he manages to make a movie better than this. But for that being said, this was a passion project for him, and I think he did a really good job here. I think it's fairly accurate from what I've seen. The acting was very good all around. It looks great, like I said, and just overall, I would just recommend it. And honestly, I would just say go into it with an open mind and make up your own opinion. That being said, my rating for this movie is a 7 out of 10.
Nice. So for me, I I really, really love this movie. I said before, the more I think about it, the more I love it. The acting, cinematography, for the most part, the editing, the story, the slow burn, the atmosphere. The atmosphere is really good. The practical effects are really good. Just overall, just a very well done movie. The slow burn stuff didn't bother me. I was intrigued throughout. It didn't bore me, even though you do feel the running time at the end, and some of Markiplier's acting could have been better. For the most part, I really love this movie, and it is. I do want to say this before we move on. Um, I think it's very interesting, and I think I mentioned this to the other guys before we started. Um, it's very interesting that this came out the same weekend as Send Help, which had a filmmaker, a horror filmmaker going back to his roots, with the film that was also made on a shoestring budget at the time. Was a first time filmmaker who did a lot of weird things, a lot of experimental things, and it's just like an interesting full circle moment that someone like Sam Raimi didn't have a ton either, built his career on this movie, and eventually became a household name to the point that his film was released the same weekend as this movie. Another first time director doing a horror movie on a relative, I wouldn't say shoestring budget, but on a like very low budget film. And of course, as a Evil Dead fan, I do have to mention that. Um, so I just felt that that was an interesting full circle moment that I really greatly admired. The fact that like Sam Raimi did the same exact thing in 1979, and then he has had this illustrious career releasing this movie that's finally coming back again to horror filmmaking, and then the same exact day another up and coming filmmaker is doing something very similar, to the point that even Bruce Campbell said something about it. He's like it's nice to see that guys with moxie are still getting into this business, and I thought that was very touching, from especially from someone like Bruce Campbell. So I felt that that was really nice to see, and it just like sort of like a weird metaphorical passing of the torch in a way. I really admired that, and I hope that this starts something in Hollywood in regards to like no budget movies with no distributor and only a little bit, and managing to get millions of dollars and being for the most part praised, mixed to positive, I would say. So I think that says a lot, and I think that's, I don't know, maybe the times are changing. One can only hope. But with all that, I filibustered a little bit too long, but great movie. I really loved it. I would give it an 8.5 out of 10. I thought it did a lot right, and I'm very happy with the film I got. So yep, 8.5 out of 10 is what I rated.
So, in conclusion, for me, even though I am giving this a low rating, and the pacing was the major like contributor to that. Even though I don't like this movie, I do respect it, and I do respect Markiplier. This guy did all of this by himself. He had no marketing, no nothing, and he managed to make a hit. And I respect, that he's open to criticism so he can improve for next time. But the stuff that's good here is the stuff that works here does work, such as his acting and the cinematography. But again, it's just the pacing that ruins it for me. If you're a fan of the game or a fan of Markiplier, you might like this, but your mileage may vary. I would say check it out in theaters, to support him. But if not, you can just catch it on streaming. And I am giving this I guess an enthusiastic 4.5 out of 10.
Is a 4.5 really enthusiastic though?
It's a nice 4.5 out of 10.
It's like having an enthusiastic flaccid penis. It's like, I mean, sure if you say so, but and we all know, gay or not, we're all getting boners from Markiplier. Did you see his nude calendar? I mean, come on now,
Dude. Oh yeah.
I may not like the product, but I still give him I still give him a thumbs up for trying.
That might be the nicest 4.5 out of 10 I've ever seen.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Although I will say I liked the meme where it was I watch Iron Lung for the plot. Meanwhile, the plot, and it's the scene where Simon was shirtless, and it's like, yeah, hell yeah.
All right, so for my final verdict, this is a movie that I do enjoy. That what works really does work here. Yes, I admit that there was pacing issues. It did need to be 2 hours, and you could have trimmed the fat a little bit. But I think I can't really say that I was like like I was like super bored and all. There were, like I said, there were slowness here and there, but what really does work for me was just like everything else. Yeah, maybe Markiplier's acting could have been, maybe it was good for the most part. Maybe you can stop, maybe when you're trying to be like really angry or something, stop trying to make yourself seem trying too hard kind of thing. But everything else, like the performances from the first part, the cinematography, the practicals, the story, the fact that it's giving you clues and making you think on where everything is going to go, use your brain, that's kind of thing. I do, those are things I really do enjoy. So I want you, look, even if you're not familiar with Iron Lung or Markiplier or anything like that, I would still say go check this out in theaters. I want you to support a small YouTuber, because trying to get his foot in the door kind of thing. I want you to at least be able to, even if you don't end up liking it, which is fine, it's not going to be for everybody, but I would say at least be able to support small indie, like small upcoming filmmakers. I'm always, even if it's a movie I don't like, I would say at least be able to go so you could be able to support people like Markiplier, kind of thing. And honestly, I hope that he takes the criticism with heart. He takes the criticism with heart. He tries again for next time, and I will be so looking forward to seeing what he has next, what next movie he has. So with that, I would give it a 7 out of 10. There we go.
All right. Well, unless
why don't we just talk about, like, while we're doing this, why don't we just talk about some of our like favorite Markiplier moments? Kind of. I don't know, because I mean,
you know what?
When the hell else are we going to be able to do this?
I can't say anything because I don't watch this stuff. Although there was one video that made me laugh. I don't know what the context was, but somebody sent it like right when Iron Lung was coming out. Somebody sent a video where it was in terms of Markiplier himself, it was like him moaning, and then he's like, no, fuck you. It's something like, I don't know what the context was, but then somebody put a caption where it's like, where you're home alone in your house and then you start getting sloppy toppy, but then you realize it's the ghost that you hate. It's so stupid. I'll try to find the video because it's so dumb. It's like, I don't know. I got laugh. But that's it, because I don't know Markiplier very well.
You know what I'm going to do at some point? I'm going to send you guys the video where he was like, because I told you about where he was playing this game where you press the button and it's like, everybody in Detroit dies, but you get cake. And he was like, what's the downside? I got to send that video to you guys.
I mean, to be fair, that is pretty base, not going to lie. Sorry to the people watching us in Detroit, all 2 of you. But listen, it's just, Sometimes you just got to have cake, and a good cake is just better than Detroit. I don't know what to tell you. You know what? My favorite Markiplier moment. You know what? I don't know if it's not really. It's man. If I had to go by favorite Markiplier moment, it would have to be. Oh my god! It goes back to the Uno. When he was playing Uno with Bob and Wade. It's not really like a Mark moment, but it's really funny to me because it always sticks with me. It's Wade's rivalry with the CPU called Barbara, and the entire time like he was getting fucked over by everybody, and Wade's flipping out, and Mark's egging it on, and it's such good stuff.
Yeah.
But obviously, I mean, man. Oh, also, like, I guess, like, his improv stuff, like, when he was doing the improv stuff with Tyler and Ethan, I thought that was also really funny as well. No, actually, no. I think the 5-second challenge video with Tyler and Ethan was really funny, where he's like, "I'm Tyler, and I'm like, I don't remember, but it was just really funny.
Yeah.
I remember.
I would say
I know some of his Five Nights at Freddy's moments. Like I remember, like, sorry, go on. You go on.
I would say like some of mine. Like I love the SCP Containment Breach Let's Plays he did. I love before he got to SCP-096, he's like, all right, I'm gonna fuck up SCP-096. I'm not afraid. And the minute he sees SCP-096, he immediately starts like getting scared. Like he walks in, and SCP-096 is doing all these noises like that. And Markiplier goes, "Oh, hi."
I know, like his some of his moments in this Five Nights at Freddy's videos are also really funny. I think of like the third one is like it's 4 a.m. playing time. I'm Freak on Mining. We'll have a nice tea party, and then he can go fuck himself.
No, my favorite Markiplier
FNAF
FNAF moment.
Smash. That was another one where it was he became a meme where he was like Smash. That was funny too. My favorite Markiplier FNAF moment is from the fourth game on the first night. It's an iconic moment where he's just like, all right, so normally nothing bad happens on the first night.
Oh, yeah.
And as soon as he says like he gets killed,
He gets jump scared.
It was so stupid. It's so funny because of course.
Hey, you do you, and I'll do me, and we won't do each other.
We won't do each other.
Probably.
That's a good poem right there.
Was that the bite of 87?
Oh, of course, that's classic too.
Oh my god, so many people were making jokes about that on Letterboxd where they're like, was this the lung of 87?
I saw one of the reviews was just literally a transcript of his first Let's Play of Five Nights at Freddy's. Like word for word, it was like, "Hello, everybody. My name is Markiplier, and welcome to Five Nights at Freddy's, an indie game made by so and so." And I'm like, it's so stupid, but it's really funny.
That reminds me of Mike Flanagan's review of Madam Web, where he just did the Nicole Kidman AMC ad. Like the whole review was, "We come to this place for magic."
True.
Based Mike Flanagan.
Very, very based. All right. So unless there's anything else we want to talk about, I think we might call it for tonight. I think so. Does anybody want to plug the next Cool Kids review?
I'll do it. So
sure. Yeah.
Yeah, this was honestly kind of a last minute thing that we added in. But the next review will be within 2 weeks. It will be Mamoru Soto's Scarlet. So that'll be hosted by me.
Hell yeah.
And then, unfortunately, after that, the next one we have is Scream 7.
Man, don't sound too enthusiastic.
You what?
John.
Scream 7.
6-7? Did someone say 6-7?
You're not looking forward to
this franchise.
Scream 7.
That's gonna
died
that'll be with Wes Craven.
Dude,
fuck you, Radio Silence. Fuck you, Kevin Williamson. Fuck this
Craven.
franchise. It's not even a franchise I like that much.
Scream 6, Scream 7.
Are.
Oh, Scream 6, Scream 7.
All right. Anyway.
Yeah, but that'll be those will be the next two reviews, would be Mamoru Hosoda's Scarlet and Scream 7 right after.
I should have called it Screven.
Screven,
Because the last movie was Screevy.
of course. We do like the Screevy Scriven.
All right, this is getting ridiculous.
Yeah, it's getting really ridiculous. All right,
Let's move on.
we are moving on and we're wrapping it up. Everyone, I hope we brought some knowledge to everybody, and I hope that you guys go and support your movie theater, and just go watch movies and
Watch
just
anything.
support your local theaters. Exactly.
Don't watch Melania.
Yeah, don't watch that. Watch if it's playing at your theater, go watch Gale, Yellow Brick Road, the upcoming Wizard of Oz horror movie.
Oh, and don't watch Wuthering Heights.
Yes. Don't watch that shit.
Yeah.
What were you gonna say, Rob?
I was gonna say, watch this, or you can watch the movie I saw earlier, Arco.
Yeah. Very cool.
Or hear me out. You can watch the critically acclaimed movie The Strangers Chapter 3 out in
that shit.
Oh, Good Luck, Have Fun, Don't Die comes out this Friday. So
yeah.
watch
I
that.
saw it early, it was awesome.
Very true, very true. Well, gents, I think this was a very good stream. Thank you. I want to thank everybody for watching, and we will catch you all next time. Peace.
Once again, we have brought light into the world. You're welcome.